morning, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you all today, and my name is Mi Peng, and I will be your moderator for this session. So we are gathered here to explore the topic of the ethics and pressures of the published or parish culture, which is available in the higher education institutions. And this is also a subject that is not only timely, but also quite relevant to us. All right? So first of all, let me introduce the CMCR, who is the organizer of this scholarly insight. And the name for CMCR is Center for Media and Communications, which is under Faculty of Communications and Creative Industries, FCCI, as you guys can see on the screen. And the CMCR, what do they do? Let me give you some ideas about CMCR. Usually focuses on research activities that is relevant to the media and communication topics, and also support scholarly activities that are relevant to the area, including conducting media and communication researches, organizing seminars and conferences in various areas of media and communications. Like today, you are here for this scholarly insight, and also to collaborate with other researchers through researches and publication work, and also to have networking with and also developing further partnerships with industry, as well as providing consultancy and also support to the industry partners. All right, so today we are fortunate to have with us a very distinguished guest with her unique insights and expertise. Let me introduce Dr. Sharifah Munirah Alatas. All right, let me introduce Dr. Munirah. I think Dr. Munirah would like me to call you Dr. Munirah, right? Yeah. A little bit of bio data. This one I got to read. It's a very long and very impressive experience that Dr. Munirah has. Dr. Munirah, who is currently an independent scholar, was formerly a visiting professor at the Faculty of Social Science, Indonesian International Islamic University. Prior to this, she retired as an assistant professor of strategic studies and international relations at the National University of Malaysia, UKM, earlier 2023. And after like 20 years of the career in UKM, right? Yeah. And Dr. Munirah specializes in geopolitics, international relations theory, strategic thought, and foreign policy. Currently, she is also the chair of Malaysian Academic Movement, in short, GARAC. Recurring themes in Dr. Munirah's scholarly and popular writings including West-centrism, intellectual imperialism, hegemony, academic dependency, decolonialism, and also post-colonialism. And her book, Reform and Nation Building, Essays on Socio-Political Transformation in Malaysia, was published earlier this year by the Association for Asian Studies Asia Short Series and Columbia University Press. As a scholar activist, Dr. Munirah writes regularly and critically in her op-ed columns in Free Malaysia Today, Malaysia Guinea, Asian Defence Insights, and the Islamabad Policy Research Institute. Her opinions on current affairs, politics, and higher educations are regularly sought after by news portals such as the Malaysian Insight, Aliran, and Times Higher Education. Dr. Munirah earned her Bachelor of Arts at the University of Oregon and also her Master of Arts and Doctorate from Columbia University. In 2021-2022, she received the Fulbright Malaysian Scholars Fellowship. And before entering academia in 2003, her previous roles included Director of Research and Publications at the Institute of Diplomacy and Foreign Relations, and Political Analyst Research Fellow at the Institute of Strategic and International Studies, both in Malaysia. and her collective research will definitely guide us through today's topic, which is Behind a Rock and a Hard Place, Ethics and How to Navigate the Publish or Perish Culture. However, before we start, I would like to invite FCCI Deputy Dean, Research and Development, and also the CMCR Chairperson, Dr. Tang Mui-Ju, to be here to present a token of appreciation to Dr. Munirah. And also, let's welcome Dr. Munirah to be on stage as well. Looking at this topic today, Between a Rock and a Hard Place, Ethics and How to Navigate the Publish or Perish Culture. So for this one, today we will delve into this focus on the research and publishing practices, connecting the issues to the global university ranking system, and also the precious place of academics by the culture, as well as including the KPI promotion systems and the issue of academic dishonesty. Without further ado, please join me at welcoming Dr. Munirah to the stage.
Thank you very much, Mi Peng. What a lively, energetic introduction. Let me get my slide. Okay, I'm not going to show you the slides. These are just for my personal reference. I have a reason for doing that, and we can discuss that much later. First of all, let me thank Dr. Chung for connecting with me. He wants to leave so quickly, but let's stay. Thank you for inviting me. And I must also say that I'm very happy to be here. It's my first time being at your university. I wasn't really aware about TAR UMT. I'm aware of Utah, so I apologize for that. But you know, when we talk about universities in this country, it doesn't really matter whether we are referring to public or private. We share the same problems. There are more problems than joys about the higher education system in the country. Sorry to be so pessimistic, but this is the reality. And I'm sure as I go through my discussion, I hope to see heads nodding in agreement with some of the negative aspects I speak about. I will say some aspects of higher education which are positive, in the sense that I see maybe changes taking place, but not within the next year or two, okay? Maybe the next decade or two. But let me not digress. Let's look at the topic itself first. Between a Rock and a Hard Place. Now, I was given 3 titles to choose from, and I chose this one because it basically sends the message that there's no way out, right? Between a rock and a hard place. No way out. That means we are condemned to be in a system that stifles us in higher education. That's the impression given by the topic, the title. But I would say that there is a way out, and it's not an easy one, but have optimism, okay? So I'm preparing the groundwork now for you to listen to maybe 30 minutes of my negative output here, but always keep at the back of your mind that there are solutions, okay? And we can talk about that, Q&A maybe, or you can interrupt me in between what I have to say throughout the 30 minutes or so. All right, now let me give you the context of my discussion this morning. Let me let you know what I am not talking about. All right, I am not here to talk about predatory publishing. I'm not here to talk about the Beale's list. Are you familiar with what I'm referring to, Beale's list? Okay, I can elaborate a little bit later. Essentially, the Beale's list is a list of bad journals or predatory journals, journals that have been isolated as participating in unethical. I'm not here to talk about the legal issues around why articles from journals are retracted after being published for a few months or even several years. Suddenly they are retracted because of some unethical reason that in how it was written or how it was published. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm also not here to talk about Q1, how to get published in Q1 journals, or why journals are categorized as Q1, 2, 3, and 4. And of course, I'm not here to give you the tricks of the trade, how to get published a lot, so that you can move up the promotion ladder. I'm not here to talk about all that. So, publish or perish culture exists because the rat race involves everything that I just said I'm not going to talk about. Okay? Instead, I will address 4 main issues. First of all, I'd like to discuss the purpose of a university. Sounds like a very basic thing to talk about. You all know what a university is, but actually you may not after we discuss what I perceive as the purpose of a university. To give you a snippet, the purpose of a university is to serve humanity, of which serving the economy is only a little small part. Yet, in a country like Malaysia, and in fact globally, one always hears and reads about why we go to university. We go to university so that we can get a job. What does that mean? It means you go to university, you are told you go to university, getting a job means serving the economy, isn't it? You go to the university to secure a livelihood. But you're not told, or you don't hear people discussing or stating, you go to university to learn how to live your life. But in my mind, many countries are falling behind in development because they don't know how to live their life. Okay, the second part I want to talk about is the role of the intellectual and scholar in society. Notice that in Malaysia, when we refer to universities, we always talk about academic staff, academicians, lecturers. Very seldom do you read in the media or you hear on TV or even in the kopitiam, talk shop, whatever, around WhatsApp groups, you hardly hear or see the word intellectual or scholar. Am I right? Most of the time it's academic, 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 lecturer. The reason I bring this up, all of us actually have to be aware that there are stark differences between the term academician and the term intellectual or thinker or scholar. And I think it's not part of the lexicon of Malay discourse, Malaysian discourse, because it isn't conceptualized in our minds. We don't seem to see that there is a need for intellectuals, for scholars, for thinkers. Whereas there are many countries with a long tradition of intellectuals and thinkers in their societies. Most of them happen to be in the developed world, which are Western countries. But let's turn to India, which is hardly a Western country, but in terms of their community of intellectuals and scholars, they have one. So this is the second part of our conversation this morning, is what are the roles of intellectuals and thinkers in a society like Malaysia? You might probably say you don't know because it's removed from daily discourse and discussion. The third point, you often hear this phrase, you go to university to acquire knowledge, because knowledge is for knowledge's sake. You just need to know. This dictum, knowledge for knowledge's sake. I don't subscribe to that. There's no such thing as knowledge for knowledge's sake. There has to be a purpose. Knowledge is for society's sake. Hence, the university supposedly is supposed to serve society. You don't go to the university just to build up your knowledge and sit tight and do nothing after that. This will bring me next time, in a few more minutes, to the topic of the role of scholar activism, okay? But anyway, on this point of knowledge for knowledge's sake, I think of two scholars / intellectuals that Malaysia has produced. One is the late, both are late actually. My late father, Syed Hussein Alatas, and Syed Hussein Ali, or Pak Syed as we call him affectionately, who passed away recently. These two scholars always emphasized knowledge is to serve society. It is for society. Hence, these two scholars have always been in the public light. Whatever they write even, the books and the articles they have written, are accessible to the larger public. Their sentences and words used within the pages of their articles and books are not complicated. Every Malaysian has access, can understand it. Whether it's in Bahasa Malaysia or English, the point is the rakyat has access. Contrary to what is produced today, we have thousands of lecturers, maybe even more, full professors. We have professors emeriti who utter and write complicated things. One sentence can be one paragraph long. They don't seem to want to get a connection with the everyday person on the street. And that to me is a waste of their university training. I'll come back to these points during the course of these several minutes that I'm here speaking to you. Now, I think I've gone through three, so my last point of what I will address, or what I am addressing, is the actual nature of the university in Malaysia. And for me, this is my biggest pet project, long-term pet project, which is the need for better university governance. And governance is a large word, but basically it means improving the condition of how universities are run and the quality of who universities hire, the quality of the lecturers. And my hope that within the next few decades, we will begin to see again a community of thinkers and scholars. I think if I ask you in the crowd, who are Malaysia's intellectuals currently functioning and connecting with the public, I think you will be scratching your head and wondering who they are. Maybe 3 or 4, at most 5. We don't have a community. All right, now, we all know the situation in Malaysia politically, don't we? We are aware of the last few years have been quite tumultuous. We've had different governments, different administrations. We still have a problem with corruption. We have a problem with ethnic divisions, polarity. This is very well known. There's no point denying it. The point is, based on this reality, what's out there, I'd like you all, academics, to ask yourself these following questions. Incidentally, what I'm going to ask you falls under the ethics part of this title, okay? I want you to ask yourself why you became academics in the first place. Do you want to contribute to society, to be ambitious, but at the same time make personal sacrifices for the greater good? Or do you want to be ambitious as well? Same thing, ambitious. We all want to be ambitious, but participate in a rat race, lie, cheat, be part of the toxic system that characterizes our universities very well, maximize personal financial gain, and if you so happen to contribute to society, that's a feather in your cap. So ask yourself that. I know maybe some criticism of my presentation might be, she doesn't realize we have families to look after, we have expenses, we have a house to pay off and a car, maybe 2 cars. My wife or my husband is not working, I'm the sole breadwinner. Education is expensive. I understand all that, that is the reality as well. But many of us did it. I did it. It's all about choices, right? You make a choice to become an academic because you are of a specific or a different mentality. You understand the role of the university and what it plays in society. It's a unique role. For instance, a university isn't the private sector in the sense that you don't have to clock in at 7, you don't have to leave at 5. You don't have to sit at your desk in a cubicle, you don't have to be on an assembly line. Now, I've just said all these things that you don't have to do. But the irony is, Malaysian universities have become like that, which is another reason why the quality of our higher education has gone downhill. We are preoccupied with clocking in. We are preoccupied in sitting at your desk, showing your superiors that you are here. At the same time, you want to get out of that, so you take 2-hour coffee breaks as opposed to half an hour. You don't do your work. You'd rather actually stay at home and churn out 3 articles within a week, which is more conducive, isn't it? Anyway, we'll get into that later. The point is, I've asked you to think about why you became an academic. Keep that in mind as I move on. Let me get back to the purpose of the university. In my opinion, there are three. There are 3 major purposes of the university. The first is a university is an agent of change. The university is also a unique institution of learning. I mean, you could be a bank teller or a bank clerk, which is an institution, financial institution, it's part of that. But there's nothing unique about that if you compare it with the university. I think you have an idea. We can talk about this during Q&A. It is a unique institution of learning. The university also must have a link with the community. Without the last point, having a link with the community, there's no point having a university. And this is why I am up here speaking to you. I'm trying to link. Of course, you are also within the higher education community only, but I think you all know also I do reach out to the general public. The book I published is accessible to the general public. It is not full of theories and dry subject matter that nobody can relate to. In fact, my father, who is a well-known intellectual, he writes very simple prose, very simple sentences and paragraphs. Everyone can understand it. Connecting with the community also means find the time. You don't have to publish in, 20-page articles in a journal. Of course you do as part of we'll get into that afterwards, part of your promotion, which I'm against. The point is, find the time, never say you have no time, because you do have time. Rather than sitting and watching a stupid soap opera on TV, you have the time to write 800 words that bring you in connection with the community. Send it as a letter to the editor. Whatever language, English, Mandarin, Malay, or Tamil, whatever language you want. Make sure you have that connection. Because without it, you're not going to know what the Rakyat is complaining about or suffering from. It's your duty to help change that situation. And bear in mind, you're not going to see change during your lifetime, but that's where your ethics comes in. You do it not because you want to see change in front of you happening. You do it because you're going to leave behind the momentum for others to pick up after you're gone. It might feel like a thankless job, but trust me, you sleep well at night. Now, I want to now further go a bit more into the Malaysian university, the ethos or the ecosystem. Now, I have a lot to say about it. I've written a lot about it, about how bad it is, how traumatic it is to be an academic in Malaysia, how I did go through many traumatic years during my career because of the toxic culture, but I survived because I had a mind of my own. I wrote when I felt like it, I published when I felt like it, which doesn't mean I didn't publish a lot. I mean, I have a CV which is about 20 pages or more long. The point is, I wrote because it mattered to my environment. I made it matter. I didn't just churn out theoretical pieces that some Q1 journal will accept and publish. I made sure that whatever I write and speak about resonates with my environment, with the society in which I live. Now, the Malaysian ecosystem, the university, is in dire straits for two reasons. Domestically, we have bad governance, we have political interference, we have leaders who seem to know what the problem is, but the next step to do something about it, we are still waiting. That's one problem. But there is also an external problem. The external problem is this neoliberal capitalist value system that has penetrated most of the universities globally, everywhere. Neoliberal capitalist value system, meaning, going back to the my first few statements about the characteristic of a university, it has changed the way we conceive or we conceptualize excellence. You hear about all these listings of universities, and if you check their websites, I mean, probably even your university, universities believe in excellence, whatever that word means, all right? In the neoliberal economic capitalist conceptualization of excellence, excellence now is narrowed down. It is equated solely with economic progress, with financial growth. Think about it. I think I have seen everyone relate excellence into how much you can make to contribute to society, to contribute to the economy, to contribute to economic growth. That's what excellence is. But to me, that is only a small part. The other problem with this capitalist mode of thinking is a new and inadequate understanding of what change means. As I said, the university is an agent of change, right? Now, in the context of this capitalist way of thinking, change is equal to or is equated with an obsession with technology. I know you are a TARUMT, okay? You are a University of Management and Technology, but we are obsessed with keeping up with technology, and that means if we keep up and then we innovate, it means we are positively changing. Education is contributing towards positive change. Again, this is very narrow. It's myopic. Because, for example, in the Malaysian context, no matter how much technological advancement or great tall buildings we have or smart bridges we have and construct, you think we're going to succeed? We can't, because we have other problems which are not connected with technology. These are problems of ethnicity, inability to accept diversity, or a rejection of the fact that we are diverse, the inability to eradicate corruption. This has nothing to do with technology. Not to mention, we do not encourage honest, transparent research carried out by our different universities as to why there is growing polarization in the country. It's a sensitive topic, but that's what I mean by the university is a unique institution of learning. It's unique because nothing is supposed to be sensitive. We are becoming a racist society. But who is addressing this at the university level? We're afraid to, right? But I'm not afraid to talk about it because I don't talk about it emotionally. We must address these serious matters in an intelligent, factual manner. We are not. We suppress ourselves, we what's the word? I'm missing the word. Whatever it is, we either suppress our own thoughts and our own actions, or another part of our very negative backward culture is that we shy away from public debates. We are not willing to stand up for what we believe publicly. I'll give you an example. This recent visit by UM had invited this American, I'm not going to call him a scholar, academic, who was very offensive in his opinions about colonialism, Zionism. Nevertheless, I, as the chair of GERAK, which stands for Pergerakan Tenaga Academic Malaysia, together with my exco, we issued a statement saying that this academic shouldn't be silenced. He should be allowed to debate and say what he has to say. What I was disappointed with is in the audience, students and the academics who attended his talk just listened. They may have squirmed in their seats or made funny faces. Nobody stood up to give it back to him. This is what we are supposed to do. Defend what you believe in if you know the background. So if you are attending his talk and want to learn what he has to say about colonialism or Zionism or settler colonialism and what is going on with the Palestinians in Gaza and how the Israelis are misbehaving and cruel and evil and all that, do your homework, stand up and defend. Put him in his place. The way to do it is not say that he should be banned, he should be deplatformed, he should be kicked out of the country. This is reactionary. Unfortunately, this attitude of wanting to shy away, remain quiet, save face, you don't want to embarrass the person, this must stop. Saving face to some extent, if you don't want to embarrass a Datin who uttered some nonsense in a video clip, well, you have to weigh it. It's better to embarrass her if you have your facts. I think you know who I'm referring to. Recently, a professor at one of the public universities was uttering some nonsense about Muslim history. Nevertheless, it is our job to defend the truth and to encourage discourses about the truth. You can only defend it if you have the background knowledge. So this brings me to my next point. How prepared are we when we reach the level of lectures or even lecturers or even associate or full professors or professor emeriti. When we reach these levels, I find that the majority of these so-called professors are still very mediocre. Yet they have that high rank. This is the problem with our universities. We are promoting them based on the numbers that they publish, not the quality that they publish. Now, this is a small snippet, aspect of the Malaysian higher education or university ecosystem that I'm referring to. There are several other problems, but we can address them later during Q&A, or maybe invite me back again. And there's a lot of problems going on. Okay. Now let me get back to this neoliberal capitalist value system and the problem of how we have conceptualized excellence and change. I just mentioned that a few minutes ago. Quantity is valued over quality. Because the mentality now is education from the viewpoint of the government, if it's the private sector, public university, or private sector, if it's private university, the view is education is for profit. That's all it is. It's just profit. Why not? With that mentality, planning is short-term. You need to have a short-term plan rather than long-term vision, because you have to have a high turnover. You have to make sure you profit within 2 to 3 to 5 years, not longer than that. You're worried if you have a longer-term plan. This also ties in very neatly with the 5-year election cycle. So we have strategic plans for our higher education, or for the primary and secondary school or vocational education. We have strategic plans. Sometimes they're 10 years, sometimes they're 20 years. But when a government changes, suddenly we are told a new strategic plan is being planned. So let's think about all our problems. And they ask us, the public, to give input. The problem with our mentality is we have good strategic plans in the past. There is no post-mortem whether those plans worked, what didn't work, what needs to be put in the new strategic plan. There's no follow-up. This goes the same way with when you build a new bridge, there's no maintenance culture. Or when you have a state-of-the-art smart this or smart that, there's no maintenance culture. There's no training before that, how to maintain it when something breaks down. So again, we have a very short attention span when it comes to planning for education. This has contributed a lot of problems. The other mentality is this education for livelihood, not education for life. So you get some young upstart politician who hasn't turned 30 yet, who says, get rid of the useless subjects. Philosophy, get rid of it. We don't need it. I think you know who I'm talking about. Anyway, that person is no longer in the government. The point is, you have young people talking this way. And again, we hear, at least we have hope in the younger generation. I actually don't have hope in the younger generation. Sorry to say it this way. But I walk I make it a point to walk most of the time rather than use my car. I do walk in my neighborhood, whether I'm buying groceries or going to the gym or whatever. Young people, what are they doing? They're walking with the phones in their face. They're bumping into me. They're bumping into me, plus there's no excuse me or sorry. Just go ahead. How rude is that? I mean, I don't think this is an old-fashioned way of looking at life. I think this is basic human behavior, isn't it? If you can do that on the street, what more if you have to plan for a country's development? You become selfish. You selfishly plan. You don't learn this in a mathematics class or a physics class. You learn this in a humanities class, like philosophy, like art, like history, literature, poetry. Yet you have young people saying these are useless subjects. So, think about that. Now let me get to the publish or perish part of this talk. Again, I mentioned this in the beginning. This conversation should actually not be about what we publish or how much we publish in an academic year or why we publish, okay? This conversation about publish or perish, at least in the Malaysian context, we should now be concerned about or introduce the topic of the global university ranking within the context of publish or perish. In Malaysia, we're not doing that. We are only talking in terms of promotions. But I would like you all to see the bigger picture. Make that connection. By the way, this is called critical thinking, okay? Making the connection, because everything is intertwined. Publish or perish, the culture that we all have now, this frenzy to get quantity, to value quantity over quality, has to do with the global university ranking system. Has a huge role to play. What is the ranking system? Basically, it's exploitation. Ranking basically times higher education, QS, US News and World Report, AWRU or ARW, the one that comes out of Shanghai. All these are ranking companies, the majority of which are based in the developed world, in the West, in Europe and in the US. Basically, these companies are out to make profit. They exploit. It's the exploitation of a few dominant and powerful countries, Britain, the United States, Holland, France, Germany. So it's the exploitation of these few dominant countries in the developed world over the rest. Majority of the world is actually developing, is it not? Majority of the world, the entire global system, comprises developing countries, the third world. But yet, everybody is following the ranking system. These few companies have their tentacles in every part of every country's higher education system. We also follow suit. We think this is the best way to be because they're doing it in Harvard. We should follow. Part of the reason we follow is our inferiority complex. Now, when I say inferiority complex, actually I'm now going to introduce to you a different concept. and that is the concept of the captive mind. All right, the captive mind is actually a concept that came up with my father's writing in 1972. When we think of the ranking system, our main concern should be these three things. That we think in a vacuum. We think that ranking, it matters, mainly because it attracts students, it internationalizes our student body, and it generates revenue. It brings up the reputation of our universities. Okay, and I say that is thinking in a vacuum. Just keep that in mind. The second point is, when we think about ranking, our concern should be that we neglect to link ranking to whether the position that our universities are on that ranking ladder, whether it has relevance to the society in which that university exists. So just because UM is within the, let's say, top 100, is the work done in any of these faculties in the UM, how much are they contributing to developing aspects of our community? If the rank goes up every year, does it mean our communities are also improving every year? I don't know, and I doubt. But again, there is no research to do to making that link. We have left that out of our sphere of thinking. The third thing is, we must understand that rankings within the context of domination, intellectual imperialism, and the captive mind is how we have to look at our position as a developing country or a third world country. We are being manipulated. Nobody is articulating it this way, but it is the truth. And I will get now to speak a little bit more about what I mean by captive mind, or I'll be quoting my father's work a lot. But generally, we are a society of minds that are captivated by what we think is excellence because it comes from the West. Western universities are doing it, we must do it so that we can be as good as they are. But that is the wrong way to think, because it's not the reality. The reality is many Western universities are abandoning the ranking system. And one thing we do forget, while we ape and imitate the West or Western universities, we still force our lecturers to clock in as if our lecturers are factory workers. They don't do that in the West. So there is a disconnect there. You know, I bring up clocking in a lot. Sounds like a very trivial matter. Trust me, it's not trivial. It really makes you stressed every time you wake up to go to the office. I'm glad I'm over with that, but I'm also going to say I never clocked in. Maybe that's another reason I was never looked upon by my superiors wonderfully. I was a rebel. Of course, everyone smiles at you. They make you think that, you're okay. But I didn't clock in. I refuse to be treated like that. But I am here speaking to you. I continue to do what I'm passionate about. Gura, by the way, me and some of my colleagues in Gura, we have just sent a manuscript to Gura Budaya. So we are still producing, we're writing. We're not, just because I'm retired, although I will take up another job soon, just because one is retired doesn't mean you give up the cause. All right? So have that cause, but if you have to clock in, your cause becomes, I've got to get to the office by 9 or else I'll be called up by my dean. I mean, this is a waste of gray matter. Anyway, let me now explain what, can I just stop? Are there any questions, by the way, or do you want me to proceed? And I don't think I have much left, maybe 10 more minutes or so. So I would continue, right? All right, let me now talk about the what a captive mind is. My father, Ph.D. Alatas, wrote 2 important articles in 1972 and 1974. Okay? See, it's in the 70s and it's still very valid, because every year that goes by, every new government that we get, I see more and more leaders who have captive minds. All right? The captive mind, it was intended to conceptualize the nature of scholarship in Malaysia back in 1972. Basically, scholarship throughout the developing world, because there were similar problems throughout the developing world that my father was observing. But of course, he wrote with Malaysia and specifically, Malaysia and Indonesia in mind. He also wrote those 2 very good articles, very relevant articles, with the intention of having all academic disciplines relate to. So whether you are in physics or economics or computer science, you can understand that it affects, this problem of the captive mind affects all your disciplines, affects the university. A captive mind is actually a mind that is under intellectual dominance. And this dominance takes place within the milieu of intellectual imperialism. Okay? So, ranking dominates your thinking, but ranking companies based in the West, they impose it on us. They charge us to be ranked. They also create this narrative that unless you participate, you might lose out. You may not be able to get the revenue from internationalizing your university. So this is a form of intellectual imperialism. You are forced, you have no way out, because you are caught up in this notion that in order to survive, in order to generate revenue, I've got to be ranked. So, these are minds also which feel inferior. Therefore, they feel the need to imitate what they perceive as superior. I'm going to end in a few minutes, but just remember about this inferiority complex issue, okay? Now, Ph.D. Alatas, my father, also defines captive mind as a way of thinking dominated by Western thought in an imitative manner, in an uncritical manner. We accept rankings willy-nilly. We don't criticize it. I mean, I'm criticizing it. I have been. We, as Garat, we saw the minister last month or 2 months ago, and I brought this up, and he seemed very agreeable that to look into our obsession with it and find alternatives. I'm still waiting, hopefully something will be done. But it seemed as if it was something new, Yes, I hear people talking about how ranking, so what, UM or UKM or whatever university, public university has moved up the ladder, but we still have so many Professor Kangkong. What's the point? We have so many graduates who are unemployable. Unemployable, meaning they do not qualify to be employed. The employers find problems with them. So unemployable is different from unemployed. So what does it mean to move up the ranking ladder? We need this discourse, a regular discussion about this, a regular conversation, and not to forward, and praise ourselves every year when the ranking comes up. Wow, we moved up. UKM has moved up. UPM now is ahead of UKM. So what? And of course we praise Singapore, but with or without the ranking, I do praise Singapore a lot. I grew up there, by the way, but the point is there is a lot to praise about Singapore academia, but not 100%, okay? They have their problems too. But that's beside the point. The point is about ranking. It does not reflect the reality on the ground. A captive mind also is a mind that is more interested in trends and movements. Do you see that happening here? We are very happy with fads, aren't we? We are now talking, very worried about PISA scores. CNA did an interview, a documentary, and it featured many of us in it, giving our opinions about higher education in Malaysia and the downward trend or the downward score in PISA. I think I was one of the few who actually dismissed us being so worried about PISA. Because to me, PISA is the same as the global university ranking system. It ranks 15-year-olds in mathematics, science, and reading, I think. Yeah. So the fact that we have been going downhill, we increased slightly in 2018, and then we went downhill again. To me, yeah, we've been going downhill. The trajectory of downhill has been there long before PISA. So we are distracted by these fads. At first it was STEM, then it became STEAM, then it became STREAM. What nonsense is this? Still, then we are still neglecting art and music and philosophy. So we enjoy the OECD trends that comes out of the OECD reports. Where is OECD? Western Europe, right? Why do we want or feel the need to follow these trends? There's no harm following, but be critical about it too. If our leaders say, yeah, we can follow it and we can pay attention to PISA, but at the same time, we need to improve here and there. We have a problem with corruption. I don't know if a leader is going to say that, but I know that. We have a problem with cronyism in our universities. That's why we have such bad governance in our universities. We have cronies. We have bodoh sombong lecturers who just want to brown nose their superiors to move up the promotion ladder. So, captive mind is a mind which is unable to come up with original responses. What is our original response to counter or to replace the global university ranking system? Other universities have done it. Where is that conversation taking place in Malaysia? I've written about it. I've presented it to the minister. Hopefully, there will be uptake on that, because there are alternatives that are suitable for our context. But the duty is of us academics to keep talking about it, keep the conversation alive. So, in other words, a captive mind, which includes the entire Malaysian society, we are captivated by, we are obsessed with rankings. Let's admit it. Some of us who have children we probably advise our children, right? Better study hard so you can go into the top 10 university, or top this university, or school, or, I mean, we say that. Saying it to encourage your child is one thing, but actually believing it and internalizing it is another. And I think we have an illogical obsession with metrics because it doesn't reflect the reality on the ground. So what if we have a top 10 university in the world? We are still hating difference. Everything that's going wrong with the country, DAP is blamed, or Chinese and Malays don't get along. Let's face it. Why don't we get along? We've lived together for centuries. I mean, it's a political problem. It's political instigation, which is why we don't get along. Okay, one more thing. A captive mind also tells yourself, a captive mind would tell him or herself that it's not possible to avoid these trends. We have to follow. It's just not possible. That's reality. It's happening. The pace of change is so fast. I mean, you hear that all the time, right? Come on, Munirah, get real, get down to earth. Ranking is here to stay. Accept it and move on. I've been told that. No, you don't have to accept it and you don't have to move on until we decide an alternative. Because what is happening to our universities? You are scrambling to publish 3 articles per year. You are also doing a lot of dishonest stuff to get those articles published. You are plagiarizing. Your superiors are forcing you to put their names on the articles as well without writing a single word. This is bad, isn't it? But all for the sake of moving up in the ranking system. You are quoting each other in your articles, whether the article is relevant or not to that person's expertise. If you have a friend who is doing gender studies, but you're writing something on helicopter procurement for the security of South China Sea, nevertheless you quote her. You put her in the bibliography or in the notes. This is dishonest. I have been asked, in fact, at the last year before I retired, somebody from INTI International University, I'm not going to mention the person. That person texted me and said, can I use your name on my article? And I have this research money, it's 6,000 ringgit, can I give it to you? So basically, that person is paying me to use my name to put on the article that he wants to publish, because that person wants to be promoted. Of course, I said no, and I've actually cut him off, because this is extreme dishonest behavior. But it is actually very common practice in Malaysia. Very common. I saw it happening during my career. But if you bring it up in a meeting, there's either silence or you're not allowed to continue your sentence. You are intimidated. So, nevertheless, if you're willing to go through your career by feeling intimidated and isolated, if you're strong enough, then do it. I did it. I'm still doing it. I don't think people have put me in a box and sealed it and chucked me away. I mean, I'm here today. You know, there are people who still invite me who want to listen to me. So it's not that I'm leading a miserable life, but at least I'm saying what is the reality, and this is the truth. The only way to improve the situation is to speak about it, get more people, to get a chorus going, how to improve it. I mean, many of you are younger than I am. You know, you have at least 30 to 40 years left. I don't, but nevertheless, it doesn't slow me down because change doesn't take place overnight. That's one thing, the previous, you know, after GE14, I think we part of us among civil society organizations in the Rakyat also, we wanted change overnight, and we didn't see that the rot was so deep that it takes decades to change. Reform doesn't take overnight, but the conversation has to take place every day if possible. All right, I've gone through a few things about the captive mind, and I would say that in connection with our higher education and universities, the toxic scenario we have and the dishonest publishing culture that we have, the fact that we don't uphold pedagogy or teaching as much as we do publishing, if at least that's my experience. We have basically sidelined teaching. There are many slipshod lecturers. They don't prepare. They recycle the same syllabus over and over again. They don't update their reading list. Their reading list is also very limited. Because of technology, they have put a lot of, you know, innovate under the topic, under the subject of being innovative in your teaching. Basically, they have a hands-off attitude towards teaching because it is downplayed now. But a major, big area of university life is teaching. It's pedagogy. Just as how our school system is rotten because we are neglecting teacher education. So, think about that. We must look at the Malaysian problem within this context of our captive mind, right? The captive mind critique must be used as a theoretical framework. Okay, now, I don't like to go on about theory, but you understand what I mean. Use it as a theoretical framework to analyze why we imitate. It's also used to, the objective is actually to re-evaluate our obsession with rankings so that we may approach or rebel or reject this frenzy to publish. We're publishing nonsense, actually, you know. And then this mentality that articles matter, books don't. That's not true. There's so much wastage of articles being published because it's utter nonsense. Why not say within 5 years, a fresh lecturer is hired? Why can't the request be, within the next 5 years, your cutoff date is 5 years, publish 2 books? Why not? Why must that person publish 3 articles every academic year? On top of your teaching, your supervision, your nonsense, your crony behavior towards your superior. Why not say, write 2 books in 5 years, write easy sentences, clear sentences so that the whole Rakyat can read it. I'm just giving you examples of how there are ways and means to overcome the nonsense that's going on. Okay? And it's time to start a chorus about how exploitative the global university ranking system is, from top to bottom. Now, between a rock and a hard place, I suppose I've mentioned that in the very beginning. It is a difficult topic. There are no clear solutions. But again, I will just reiterate, you need to speak in unison. I'm encouraging some of you also. I mean, not everyone can write. I understand that. Not everyone can speak publicly. I mean, I understand that. But those who have the speaking capability, give short public lectures. If you don't have the connections, find the person who you can get connected through. All right? BFM, if you know somebody who knows somebody in BFM. Or if you want to write a letter to the editor. I mean, start your academic, your scholar activism, if I may put it that way. Start small, but be passionate about what you want to write about and change. This is provided you are of the mentality that education is not meant for livelihood, but it's meant for life. Okay? One last point. I think part of the ranking problem which has imposed on our university culture is this idea of GOT, graduate on time. I don't know if you have it. Do you have it here as well, right? That's utter nonsense. So hence we are producing PhDs without an ounce of brain activity in them. We are producing PhDs because it's necessary to GOT them. I don't think my father had more than, I don't know how many, maybe 10 PhD students in his entire career. I'm not sure, okay, I'm just throwing that number out. But I was horrified throughout my career at UKM. I have colleagues with 45, 50 PhD students they are supervising. This is nonsense, utter nonsense. Now, I don't know, some of you here might be guilty also. I don't want to know who you are. But that's my opinion. Okay, the GOT is a problem. Nobody's talking about this, right? We are just involved in how to GOT this person. They've been here more than 6 semesters. Or we need to get it out, or else my score will go down. I mean, I was on WhatsApp groups. Of course, I'm always silent, but I'm laughing my head off because these people are stressed about nonsense issues. I channeled it elsewhere by writing to FMT or Malaysia Kini. And I, don't write nonsense. I write the reality. All right. I would say we have to just stop forcing academics to publish the way they are doing it now. There's too much of a frenzy. Learn how to relate what you are doing in your discipline to your society. Make that connection. You've got to make the effort, or else universities become superfluous, they become useless. Remember, in the beginning I said, the purpose of a university is to serve society. The economy is a small part of society. Let me now end, all right? To give you an idea of the ambition a captive mind would have, all right? A captive mind has this senseless ambition. This person, a captive mind, would strive to would make a statement like this: Malaysia needs a Nobel Prize winner. we need to construct or build the Oxford of the East, or we need a Harvard of the North. I think you can recall which minister actually said that. I'm not going to name names. The point is, how mentally captivated can you be to think that you can, out of thin air, build with concrete and bricks an Oxford of the East or a Harvard of the North, or create or produce a Nobel Prize winner within the next 5 years? You can't, because I quote something that my father wrote in 1999. He had written a letter to the editor in New Straits Times. I think it was a letter to the editor. The title of the article was called A Heartfelt Prayer for Our Country, December 27th, 1999. I don't know if it's online. I'm not sure whether it's all archived. Anyway, this is what he wrote. To have one Nobel Prize winner, we must have thousands of serious scholars. We must have research infrastructure. We must have formidable labs and libraries. We must have hundreds of professional journals and sustained funding. Now, what sinks in my mind is the first part of the sentence. We must have thousands of serious scholars. We don't have thousands of serious scholars. We have thousands of lecturers. We don't have thousands of serious scholars, and we hardly have any living intellectuals. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Munirah, for this very reflective sharing this morning. I think a lot of us, we have a lot of thinking, about the role of being academics, why we are here today and that kind of stuff. But then, right now, why not we have a Q&A session? I have one. Yeah, so I'm trying to write a lot of notes when I'm listening. What would be the harsh consequence when we're in this culture, publish or perish?
Okay, very big, large, wide question, but I think we are living through the harsh consequences. Okay, we are unable to find a solution to our polarization. We are very aware that 1969 took place, but we are still using that as an excuse to bridge the gap. I don't think social media is helping, which is another problem I have with technology. Social media is very helpful in some ways, or rather technology is very helpful in some ways, but in many ways it is divisive. So social media has been used to polarize all of us. Now, I don't think we Malaysians are born to hate diversity. It's ingrained in our nature to be to live in diversity because we are from Southeast Asia, which is a diverse region. But we're socialized, and a lot of it these days is socialized through our handphones and through websites and WhatsApp groups where there's no body language, there's no eye contact. So we need to talk about this, we need to keep mentioning this. The role of the university is to, I disagree with, there is a university in Australia that has decided to run all its courses online. There's no more face-to-face. I'm totally against that. But it's cost cutting. In the name of cost cutting, they're doing that. I mean, there must be other reasons too. I don't have the details. The point is, the traditional way of learning, of interacting, of socializing is changing because of technology. And this is not good. And of course, you have toxic politics, which is further dividing us. I mean, we all know what's going on. We've just gone through the halal issue, and now we are going through this deviant group. Thank God everyone does admit that it's a deviant group. The problem is, how can the university help? Well, we can help by talking about it, not remaining silent because we are afraid it is a sensitive topic. The point is, talk about it intelligently, not emotively, but intelligently with facts, with historical references. After all, there was a time in Malaysia where things were good. It has not been always 100%, but the narratives were different. I mean, of course, many outspoken people have been incarcerated, right? But how many professors have been incarcerated? Unlike other countries. None, right? One or two maybe, but it's not a trend. I'm not advising you all to react and be reactionary to the point of being arrested and thrown in jail. No, I'm not saying that. Do it through your work, through your teaching, through your reading. Read widely. Another problem I faced during my career is that lecturers do not read. Actually, many of us are guilty of that because of time. Because we are asked to publish or perish. But go back to the very first question I asked. I asked you to think about three things. Why did you decide to become an academic? Just as how many school teachers become school teachers because they cannot get other jobs. Whereas if you ask a school teacher in Finland, they dream of becoming a school teacher. Not only because it's prestigious, but also they get a master's degree and a Ph.D. They are expected to. They are a respected community. Teachers are respected. It's the other way around in this country. We should change that. I don't know if I've answered your question, actually. I might have gone astray.
I'm chair, currently teaching in FCCI. So I'd like to, how should I put it actually this way? Now, the education system in Malaysia in particular, after 1995, then we saw the former Lembaga Akreditasi Negara, and then now currently is the MQA. What is your thoughts here perhaps of whether MQA is able to uplift the quality of our higher educations, or instead just drawing a box for us to just run within this particular box, and we kind of are difficult to be more proactive in syllabus design perhaps, or perhaps also on the assessment?
Okay, thank you. That's a good question, and I think it's related to this problem of university autonomy that we have. There seems to be a lot of, or there's not seems to be, there is a very clear top-down management system between the government, the ministry and agencies and universities. So, I mean, I also faced it. Our syllabus, we're not free to decide what we put on our reading list. I mean, especially in the social sciences, you can't have a book that's older than 5 years. I mean, that's utter stupid nonsense. Why can't I have I wanted to put a 1929 book on my syllabus, and I was told not to. But you see, the stupidity of it all is, I created two syllabi. One to submit officially, and the other that I use in my class. So it's a waste of time, it's double work, but again, why do you become an academic? You've got to think of who you're teaching and what you're teaching, how it is relevant. So as far as MQA goes, yes, of course they have certain rules and regulations, but I think because we lack university autonomy, we are not consulted as much as we should be, when it comes to how we organize our syllabus, or criteria for promotions, for instance. We are not even consulted, or at least your heads of departments don't take a keen interest in who they are heading. I mean, I know there's a deputy dean here, but you know, deans and heads of departments have to understand who your lecturers are and the strengths and weaknesses of your lecturers. After all, you're given that position. It's an honor, but you got to put in the work. Get to know who your lecturers are and what they are good at, and recommend if they need to be promoted or not. You don't promote somebody just because you're friends with them. I mean, this is the patronage and the cronyism and the toxic culture that exists throughout our university system. Many of us are prevented from being promoted because we have a superior who is jealous or who hates you, or, you know, I noticed that among women, sorry to say, women do that to other women. Yeah? This is the problem. We have a lot of problems in our universities based on silly things. Not so silly when you are suffering. And I must say I've been suffering a long time, but I didn't let that hold me back, you know, because I have good upbringing and I have good, you know, I have a history of scholarship in my family. So I must say I am lucky, I'm privileged in that sense, to have the memory of my father's struggle. So that keeps me going. But to answer your question, this question of university autonomy is something we need to grasp. But having said that, don't expect the government or any government agency to give us that semblance or a little autonomy when we ourselves don't know what to do with it. If we have autonomy, but then we are not able to say, if we stick to the same old bureaucratic style of running our departments or treating our lecturers, then we don't deserve autonomy. If we are going to practice cronyism or regard organize our departments in a hierarchical manner, bully our younger lecturers, sexually harass them, if we are going to do that, we don't deserve to be autonomous. Have I answered your question? No?
No, I'm looking at actually that like just now when you mentioned about the syllabus that's been limited, and then the assessment criteria that's been limited by the MQA, at least for that particular, I'm thinking that if we were to follow what MQA asks us to do in the long run, then the whole entire pedagogies that we have or we plan to do is kind of like just within the box.
Yes, I agree. But you see, the conversation, that's why my talk is a bit bigger in scope, right? You can't talk about reforming higher education without connecting the dots. So the MQA issue has to come together with what do we expect the connection with our community to be? If I am unallowed to suggest to my students to read this 1929 book because MQA says so, these students who graduate are not going to understand that way of 1929 thinking that is applicable to current situation. You see, so that's what I'm saying, make the connection. Unfortunately, you'll have to do what I do, prepare 2 syllabi. But I'm not going to say, prepare 2 syllabi, but at the same time, bring it up at meetings all the time. You've got to do it, you've got to write about it publicly also. I mean, as I said, not everyone can write, not everyone can speak. Whoever has the strength or the know-how, take that extra step. Okay, I know you have careers. I know it's a lot to take in. Of course, I can say that now. I'm done with this nonsense. But the struggle never stops. I'm still struggling, and I'm still unhappy about what I see around. I get frustrated. If BFM wants to interview me, and I'm very often frustrated. But I find myself saying the same things in a different context, but it's the same basic problem, which is top-down management, bureaucratic culture, which our Prime Minister has actually said he wants to eradicate. The problem is, saying is one thing, but doing is another. So, the bureaucracy in MQA is amazing. I don't know, we don't need technocrats alone to advise on accreditation. We also need the involvement of academics or scholars like us. But that's not happening. The whole system needs to change. And it's a problem with our mentality. We have a bureaucratic, captive mind. Very depressing, isn't it? I've come here this morning not to offer solutions, but to give you more depression.
Good morning. From a student perspective, I do agree a lot of when we look on publish and perish culture and to the big picture of the whole education system. Especially as a student, I always couldn't understand why there is a scope answer. Why we have to mark following a certain answer, and then answer out of the box could have been accepted, and not only in uni, like from young to now, right? So the question I want to ask is, I do agree that we shouldn't rank university based, value university based on the ranking system that we have. Even if I heard that certain university ask their student to cite the own work from their own university professor. But then I think there's also because of the company now value too much on the ranking system, and when students look at the university, they choose based on the ranking system. So what are your suggestions? For example, student now, we are looking for, let's say, further studies. And if we don't look on those ranking systems, then how to decide whether these universities are good or bad in certain aspect? How do we value it with our ranking system?
Okay, that's a good question because, as I said, the fix is not overnight. The more we talk about the fact that ranking doesn't matter, the more companies will also begin to realize that what determines the value of the employee is how they perform at the interview. So it is a process, you see. Companies will then come to realize, in fact, many employers, as I mentioned earlier, many employers do invite for interviews, but they end up rejecting them because they can't answer simple questions or they cannot think on their feet. The person they interview fails the interview because it's not that they don't know anything about their topic. They don't know something outside their subject matter. They don't know how to solve conflicts. They don't make eye contact during the interview. I've asked a particular employer why that person rejected a very highly acclaimed, some student who wanted to get into the company. Basically, he said she doesn't make any eye contact, very shifty person, shifty. Not because she's from a top university or with good grades. So the employer is looking for very human factors rather than your academic qualification. Very soft, they're looking for soft skills rather than that. So I would say don't think that companies are only looking to source from top universities. Again, I've also been told companies also tend not to hire or to hire only from a particular ethnic group. We have that problem too. So these are multifaceted problems. The point is, whatever I say to you today, what is the solution? We're not going to get a solution because it is a process. The more you talk out there about how ranking doesn't really matter, it's the soft skills that matter, the more companies will follow suit. At least that's how I look at it. It's a very complicated issue, the problem we have in this country. And it's so complicated that it is showing that we are on a backward trend because our leadership is not doing much about it. Our leadership is really putting it on the back burner, and that worries me. So in many ways, I'm glad I'm not young anymore, because if I was your age and I'm listening to me, I'm going to be very worried. I wouldn't want to get out of bed anymore. So I'm sorry about that, but haha, it's all up to you now, not me anymore.
Okay. All right, I think we got to end this Q&A sessions. Of course, later, if you guys would like to talk personally with Dr. Munirah, you can do so, or having some discussions as well. But right now, allow me to end this session, which is thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. I believe that these scholarly insights will definitely enhance the awareness of the academic ethics and also encourage prudence in research practices. And on behalf of CMCR, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to our distinguished guest speaker, Dr. Munirah, for sharing your valuable insights and also expertise on the topic. And of course, I believe that your perspective will definitely enrich our understandings and also inspired this session. Right now, as you guys can see, this is not to forget to take the attendance of yours for you to get which is the certificate of the participations. Okay, I guess once again, thank you so much to everyone here, and especially to Dr. Munirah. We all hope to see you again, right, Dr. Munirah? Yes. Okay, and thank you everyone here and also those in the Google Meet. I'll see you again and have a wonderful day.